Muy buenos días, ¿cómo están?
Good morning, everyone. Hope you will well.
Que la energía de hoy,
I hope the energy of today,
el abuelo sol, la abuela
of
luna,
our grandfather's son and
todas las
grandfather's son,
hermanas, las
sun
estrellas,
and
y la
moon,
energía de
our
ustedes
sisters,
que
the stars, and the
escuchan,
energy of each one of you,
aún ya sea de noche,
even if it's at
si es en
night,
la tarde, si es al
if in the
mediodía,
afternoon or it's at
que la
noon,
energía de la luna les acompañe.
may the energy of each of this
Desde el calendario
be with
Maya,
you.
que es
According to the Mayan calendar
del cual soy
of the
originaria,
Qualitative,
hoy es la energía Kabuk,
today the energy is
la
Kabuk,
energía femenina, la energía de
which is
las
the feminine
mujeres,
energy, the
que
energy of women,
vincula dos palabras,
which links two
que
words.
quiere decir el
It means
de transitar del dolor
of transit from pain
a la fuerza, transitar de la
to
crisis
strength, from crisis
a la alegría, a la
to
esperanza,
joy, to hope,
poder pasar
to be
de la
able to
oscuridad y
go from
transitar a la luz.
darkness and transition into light.
Entonces la energía del Kabuk también nos enseña la dualidad, cómo nosotras
And this
como
brings us to
personas, como
duality. How
mujeres,
this, as people, as women,
como seres humanos, como
as
parte de
human
nuestra
beings,
vida,
as part
transitamos
of
en
the
esa
capital life, we
dualidad.
transit in that
En
duality.
algunos momentos
In
pasamos
some
los
place, we're
dolores
going to be in
difíciles,
pain, crisis,
incertidumbre,
in
conflicto,
uncertainty, conflict.
y cuando más oscuro es cuando
And when it's
va a
darkest,
amanecer.
that's when the
Entonces ese es el
sunlight's coming.
Kabuk, que quiere
And that's
decir
book for us.
dolor
Pain
y fuerza.
and strength.
Entonces es la energía
And
que
that's the
las
energy
mujeres
that the
y las
women
personas nos enseñan
and the
a
people are
pasar del
taught
dolor a la fuerza,
to go
a
from pain to
levantarnos
strength,
de lo más
to get up
hondo que caigamos
from the deepest, where how far, no
y
matter how
volver a
far deep
reemerger
we
y
fall,
resurgir.
and be able to
Entonces
come
yo
up.
tengo hoy por eso dos velas, que es
That's
la
why today I have two
dualidad,
candles, which is a
y
duality.
vamos a poner
And from
la
here,
vela que está del lado del
in
corazón,
the one
vamos
next
a
to my
poner
heart, I'm gonna
todo
put
lo bueno que hemos vivido,
all the good
toda
that
la
I have,
fuerza
that we
que
have
hemos
lived,
tenido que
all the
reunir.
strength that we have gotten to come
Y la
here.
vela que está del lado derecho,
And the one on on the right hand,
pues
we're gonna put
todos los dolores,
all the
crisis,
pain, the crisis,
conflictos,
the conflict,
incertidumbres,
the uncertainty,
enfermedades,
and
tristezas,
sicknesses and sadness,
desencantos que hemos vivido.
things that we don't like, that we
Y
have
como
lived
hemos
and we are not,
transitado de la
and how
oscuridad
we made that
a
transition
la
from
luz,
going from the
vamos a
darkness into the
permitir que
light,
la energía
and made that
de
strength
todos
of the energy from
nos
the strength
acompañe
and that light
cuando volvemos a
accompany
esos
us
momentos.
when we come back to the dark
Cada
side.
vez, como me dice
But
mi
each
abuela,
time,
cada
as
vez
my
va a
grandmother
ser
would say,
menos porque cada
each
vez va
time
a
it
ser
should be less
pues
and
más
less
gente,
because
más
we go more
personas.
people, we go more, we grow
Entonces,
more.
tengo dos flores,
So I have two
una,
flowers as well.
y aquí encomiendo en
And
esta
here
luz,
I put in this little light
donde está todas nuestras
where every
oscuridades,
energy, every
les voy
darkness
a
is.
pedir
We're
que
going to
se
ask all of
pongan las
you
manos en
to
nuestro
put your
pecho.
hands in your belly
Cada una de
button.
nosotras vamos a
Each
poner
one of you put your hands in the
palmas
belly
de
button,
mano izquierda sobre la
left
mano
hand
derecha, sobre el
on top of your
ombligo.
right hand
Y
on your
ese es
belly
nuestro
button.
punto de equilibrio.
And that's our
Y
balance.
vamos a agradecer
And
con
we're
los
going to
ojos
start, we're going to
cerrados
get thanked with
todos
our
los
eyes closed,
momentos de
all the moments
oscuridad,
that
de
have been dark for us,
incertidumbre,
of
de
uncertainty for us,
miedo, de
of fear,
angustia, de enojo, de
of anger,
frustración y de
of
cansancio y de
frustration, of
ansiedad.
tiredness
Todos los
and
desequilibrios que
sickness,
hemos vivido.
everything that has taken us out of
Los
balance.
agradecemos,
We're going to thank for
nos
them.
inclinamos ante
We
ellos,
bow to them.
los reconocemos
We recognize
porque
them
son parte de nuestro
because they are
diario de
part
vida
of our net,
y
of
porque
our
nos
life,
permiten crecer.
and they make us grow.
Nos inclinamos y los
We bow
reconocemos,
to that,
pero no con sumisión,
but we're not under
sino como
submission,
agradecimiento,
but as a
porque
thanks,
algo nos ha enseñado
because they have
esos
taught us
momentos
something.
de oscuridad,
Those moments have taught us
esos
something. Those
momentos
dark
de
moments
caer, como decimos en
have
nuestro
make us
pueblo,
fall, and like we
en
say
el
in our town,
Shilalba,
we
en
fall
la
into
oscuridad,
Shilhaba, into
en el
darkness,
desierto.
into certainty.
Gracias por ese tiempo.
Thank you for that time.
Inhalamos,
We go take inhale,
exhalamos con
take
la
a deep
nariz.
breath, and exhale through your nose.
Inhalamos,
Inhale through your mouth. Inhale through your
exhalamos,
nose. I'm sorry. Exhale through your nose, through your mouth.
inhalamos,
One more time. Inhale
exhalamos.
and
Abrimos los
exhale.
ojos
We open our
y
eyes
reconozcamos
and we
todos los
recognize
momentos que
all
hemos
the moments
transitado
that
después
we
del
have
dolor,
transitioned from through that
de la
pain,
desesperanza,
through that
de la
part of we
crisis,
losing hope,
a la
through
luz.
crisis,
Y cómo
going
nos
into the light,
hemos hecho más
and
fuertes,
we have become
más
stronger.
seguras,
We're,
más
we're
sabias.
secure,
Cómo
wiser.
hemos permitido que
How we
florezca
have
nuestra
become
luz y nuestra
able
sabiduría.
to make that
Y
line
eso
shine
hace
and
que
get
nos
growing wisdom.
mantenemos en el
and
y
continue with our
sentir
hands in our belly
todo
button because
lo
that's
que
where
hay.
that balance. That's
Pero
our life
percibiendo
balance.
la
That's our
luz,
energy right
la
there. We take
fuerza
that
y
light,
la
that
autoridad,
strength, that
esa
authority,
valentía
that
de
wisdom,
poder decir,
the power
puedo,
of saying I can.
continúo de pie,
I
como el
continue
agua,
standing
como el fuego,
like the
y
water, like
estoy
fire,
completa
like wind,
y
like
estoy
earth,
viva.
and I'm
Y vamos a
alive.
decir todas,
And we're all
estoy
going to
viva.
say, I am alive.
Todos en nuestros
Everyone
idiomas,
together, I am
estoy
alive.
viva,
Whatever your language, I am
estoy
alive.
aquí,
I am
estoy
here.
presente
I
y
am
estoy
present.
ahora.
And I'm here
Estoy
now.
viva
I am
aún y
alive
a pesar de todo.
no matter
Sacudimos la
what.
cabeza, así como cuando
We
uno
shake our
camina.
heads like if we're moving our,
3,
like a plant.
4.
Just shake your head one, two, three,
Giramos
four
la
times.
cabeza
We bow our
de
heads. We do
izquierda a
circles with
derecha
one left to right.
una vez,
One time, do a
regresemos
circle left to right,
3,
two, three times,
lo
4 times.
regresamos para atrás del
Now take
centro
it back
a la
from the
izquierda
center
una
to the
vez,
back, to the left.
2 veces, 3,
Take it back.
4
Take it back to
veces.
the other side now.
Estoy
4 times.
viva,
I am alive.
estoy aquí
I am
y
here.
estoy presente.
And I am present.
Con estas velas que
And
envío
with
de
these
luz a ustedes
candles, I
para
send
que
you the
eleven
lights to
sus
all of
energías
you.
de vida
So your
y
lighter energy of
presenten.
life are
Y
awakened.
con estas flores que
And
tengo
with
aquí
these flowers that I have here,
manos,
which
que
are also two,
representan la
which
dualidad de la
represent
persona,
duality of who we
somos
are,
fuerza
we are strength,
y también somos debilidad.
but we're also weak.
Somos tristeza, pero también
We are
somos
sorrow.
alegría.
We're sorrow, but also joy.
Tenemos desequilibrios, pero
We
también
take that
tenemos
balance,
equilibrios.
but we also find our
Y en
balance. We
nombre
lose
de
balance, but we find our
todos
balance.
esos
And in the
desequilibrios,
name of all of these
abramos
unbalances,
nuestras manos como que
we open our
quisieran
hands,
recibir la fuerza de
just
este
receiving
pedal.
this. Receive all of these petals for
Todos los
me. Open your hands
desequilibrios, los
and receive these
desbalances,
petals,
las tristezas que
every
hemos
sadness
vivido,
that we have lived.
nos den energía de vida,
May they give us energy today.
nos hagan mujeres
May this make us
sensibles,
women who are sensitive,
mujeres
women
con fuerza,
with strength,
mujeres sabias, mujeres
wiser,
felices y
women
contentas,
who are happy,
seguras
filled with joy, secure
que somos
of who we
de
are,
nuestra energía de fuego,
of our
agua y
energy,
tierra.
of land,
Y
fire,
agarren
water.
con esta vela, esta
And
flor,
with this
ustedes no la
candle, with
tienen
this
en la
flower, I'm
mano,
sorry,
pero la van a sentir en
you don't
sus
have the
manos,
flower, you'll feel
y
it in
se
your
la ponen
hands.
en el corazón.
I'm going to put it in your
Y
hearts.
agradecemos toda la
And we
fuerza,
thank all that
toda la
strength,
energía de vida,
all that
todo
energy
lo
of
que
life,
hemos logrado,
everything we have
todo lo
accomplished,
que somos,
everything that we have
todo
been,
lo
everything,
transitado
everything that we have
de vida
transitioned,
a la
how
fuerza,
big we are
a
now
la
from
alegría,
that strength, from
a la
life,
vida
coming into strength, coming
integral.
into life.
Y con su
Infinitely
flor lo
thanks.
agarran. No
Touch your
tienen la
hand.
flor,
You
la
don't have the
tengo yo
flower,
para
but
ustedes, la
I have it
ponemos
for
en la
you. Go through your
cabeza,
hair,
en la
go through your hair with your
frente,
hands as if you have that flower, your
cabeceras
forehead,
de velo, en
behind
los
behind your
oídos,
head, into your
en los
senses,
oídos,
in your ears,
en nuestros
in
ojos,
your eyes,
en nuestra,
in our
todo
face,
por la nariz, en la
in
boca,
all our face,
pasando
noses,
nuestras
mouth.
manos,
Let's go
agradeciendo
through
y
your hands through
sintiendo el
there, giving
beso
thanks and
en
feeling that
nuestra
energy
garganta, en nuestro
in our
pecho,
throats,
en
in our
nuestros
necks,
brazos.
in our arms.
Pasemos, no
Let's
nos
go.
neguemos a sentir
Let's
lo que
not deny
sentimos,
that strength. Let's not deny
pasemos
that power, who we are, how we
en
feel,
todo nuestro
what we
cuerpo,
have
pasemos
in
nuestras
all our
manos
body. Let's
y
put our
con el
hands
paso de la flor sobre
through our
su
entire body. I'll pass that flower through you so that it grows in you,
que
that
haya
joy
la
grows in
alegría,
you,
el amor, el
so that
cariño y el
that
cariño,
love comes for all of
para
you,
que sigamos con vida,
and that we
para
can
que
all
sigamos
continue being
vivas,
alive,
presentes.
feeling
Nos
alive,
abrazamos,
present. We hug ourselves now.
gracias.
Thank you.
Aquella pequeña ser que
Thank you to
estuvo
that
en el vientre de
human
mamá
being
y que
who
fue
was in the mother's
criada
womb
con mucho
and who
amor
came to life with a lot of
en
love
las circunstancias que hayan
in
sido.
whatever
Gracias a la
situations there were. Thank you to that
niña
baby
por
who
7 y
grew
9 meses.
through 7 months,
Gracias
9 months.
a la niña, la
Thank you
bebé que
to that
nació
girl,
con
to that
nuestros
baby
ojos
who
en
opened
una
that eye
madrugada, en un mediodía, en una tarde.
at noon, in the morning, at night.
Gracias por nuestro
Thank you
nacimiento.
for our
Y
birth.
gracias,
And
muchas gracias por el
thank
camino
you
recorrido,
for the
por
path that
nuestra
we have walked
madurez,
through our
por las
childhood,
risas de nuestra niñez y
through
los
our
llantos de
joy in our
nuestra
childhood.
adultez. Gracias
Thank
por
you
nuestra adolescencia,
for
por nuestra
adolescence,
juventud,
for
por
youth,
nuestras fuerzas.
for our
Y las que
strengths,
ya somos adultas,
and for all of us who
gracias
are
por nuestra
adults,
edad adulta.
Thank you for the life that we have today, because we have walked for what we have walked. We open up our hands with humility and we say, we put our lives, our energy in lives as women, as people, as part of the network of life. We put that in your hand, into the heart of the sky, of the cosmos, so that it can be with us and strengthen us and fills us with wisdom. To Mother Earth, we put our hands through Earth and we say, Mother Earth, may your strength and authority and your tenderness be with us. To the energy of water, and let's say we're putting water on top of us. If we're putting water on us, awaken our fluidity, awaken our harmony, awaken our light. Let us bloom just like water. Let's vibrate just like water. Let us be transparent, tender, strong, secure, like water. And let's embrace ourselves with that energy of water. Let's salute the wind and open our arms. And we say to the great mountains, to the fog, to the wind, to make us free. Free of all those loads that we are carrying, those historic loads, as women, as a town. That we release those loads and we open our arms back and forth with our arms open. Let's go. Let's release everything that don't allow us to fly. One time, two times, four times. Let's open our wings. Spread your wings into the wind. And let's go with the wind, which is allows us to belong. Let's receive that of what belongs to us. Let's receive. Let's open up those wings and spread your wings. Open your wings, raise your wings, and let's move forward. Let's transcend. Remember, we can transcend through pain into joy. But that pain is a teacher, sickness is a teacher, and joy is our strength. And with all that energy, we hug ourselves, we bow our heads, and we give thanks. I thank all of you for your light, your strength, your energy, your path. And I invite you to be continuing with all that joy and happiness. Let's continue this process because it's a short process in our times. We only have March, April, May, and June, and July. 4 more months and 15 days to finish this process. But we'll still have an entire life to continue blooming. And may this be, through our research, me bloom as well. And we put that as if we have that process, that research process here in our hands. Open your hands. We put the energy, we ask for the energy of our grandparents, of the sea, of the rivers, of the lakes, of the grandfather and grandmother, of the wind and mountains, of the hills and creeks, of the girls who are seed, of the boys who are seed, the strength of the sky, the strength of fire, of wind, of water, so that whatever it is that we're writing has strength and it has a heart. I mean, has strength and a path, and that our research can bloom, and that it can open the doors for what we're doing, for the work that we're doing in the communities. That our hearts are open, and our minds are open, and our energies are open, so that we can flow through us, through our identities. May it be this way, and let it be that way. All right, let's think that we have our document here. We have our research here. I'm gonna kiss it. Kiss your research. Kiss your hands. Why are we doing this work? With tenderness. I'm not with fear, not with sorrow. We're doing this work with joy and tenderness because it's gonna bloom and it's gonna give us fruits through those research, through the studies that you all are doing. Thank you, everyone. And may you all be happy and filled with joy. And may let's continue. Let's continue with our work here. And that's where I'm going to continue with the presentation of a part that we're still pending. And then when I ask to all of you, I want all of them to be motivated to participate without being shy. We're going to share what was going to be the approach that we're going to be working with. That was going to do last week. And we're going to share the steps, the methodological steps that we have, what techniques are we using, how are you going to do this wisdom of the town so that we continue this research. And we have you reading it. We're going to do it in a sense right now. They're going to try. Today we have a long way to go. So when I ask you to be here present, I know that we're through a screen, but I'm pretty sure that you're here, that you're there, that your name, just your name there, and there's something else. I know you're here, you're present, and you're paying attention to this presentation. Let's begin, and then this is our process. I'm going to share the screen. You tell me if you see it. Can you see the presentation? Great. So I asked you 8 days ago to do the differentiation between what is the approach, the methodology, and the technique. The approach is the perspective that's going to guide our research, the scope, how we're going to plant ourselves, the philosophical approach, what's going to guide this research, what perspective, from what planting, from what scope are we doing this research. Methodology is the steps, the stages, and the moments that implies the research process. And the techniques are the amount of tools that we're going to be using to apply the methodology. So that there's nothing complicated that we're asking for. And how do I know this? How do we complement it? We're going to retake this from the approach. What this is doing is it's a holistic approach. All the historical, socioeconomical, and cultural and work, generational, the life of women, their history, the start of life, all of that, the cosmovisions that have multiple dimensions. That also starts from the sentient thinking and cosmo feeling and implies their knowledge. One way of thinking. We recognize there's different practices and experiences, different knowledges. And it's based on that cosmos. It's collective. It's not one person's. The wise women that we're gonna be, she recognizes the work that it brings from many generations, all the wisdom that she shared from generations before. We're gonna consult somebody who's an expert. Besides the experts, lights the being in the communities, somebody who has studied a topic, the topic of violence based on towns. But that person is not going to tell us her own thinking. It's a joint of cosmo knowledge. Collect the cosmo knowledge of all the transcendence and for more. And for the community and for the community. It's not me coming to the community. I'm going through them, with them, at their pace, and for them. Everything that we do is for them. And this allows us to have that duality. The research is an approach. It's not I'm here, but I'm part of that network. I'm here to live and learn and be part of that energy. And if I'm there, it's wonderful. But I'm there, if I'm an external person, I'm being a part of them. You're going to be here? Yes, I'm going to visit you. No, you're not. We're going to do a work together, a collective work. It's a process that is very participative and it's inclusive. Intergenerational, talking about the wisdom of, let's think about, we talk about violence against women and how the towns have adapted and how they led with this case. But we're going to visit a woman who was victim, that mother. Have we asked the son, that girl, how are you living that violence? Because in our towns, that violence replicates and it affects everyone, even the animal that is in the house, the dog, the plants, what we eat, everything. So when we say intergenerational, it's important to take into account for every generation, the grandmothers, adults, youth, and children. And also, it needs to be that allows a process that it's free and informed, and epistemologies and ecology of cosmo feelings and cosmo knowledge. So there is not one epistemology. There's a joint of different epistemologies and different cosmo knowledge through those towns, through our sources, that allows us to have to receive that knowledge. So it's important when we talk about this, we do this dialogue, we talk about diversity of the cosmologies and cosmo feeling, and of the women, indigenous women and people. Like we said last week, would allow us to decolonize their research and give visibility to the scientific and cosmogonic knowledge. It's a source coming from the indigenous women, from their towns, which is going to articulate that. And that the pedagogy of Mother Earth is there. That approach is going to have what Mother Earth teaches us, the cosmos, the water, the territory we're going to be present, and going to allow us to start from those cosmos of knowledge of life, that allows us to recognize and awaken all of that, and that is based on the perspective of rights, but not from an anthropocentric view, where the rights are collective rights of our people, or specific rights of women that are linked to their collective rights, and the biocultural rights towards the rights of life that they have with the land, with the water, with the territory, because they're also beings of life. Water feel, the land feel, the seeds feel, animals feel, and we're part of that net. So our approach needs to come to articulate that and protect that collective participation and co-create that knowledge. And it's not that everything you do from the process through the elements: participation, active participation, collective knowledge, and the knowledge that we learn through the research. Everything that we do in the community, in the territories, in the organizations that we do, may be allow us to let us to learn, to get knowledge, where everyone learns. That they learn and we learn. I'm here to learn. Remember, I'm here to give you, and I receive as well. I'm going to hear this. That's the ecology of knowledge that we're talking about, that reciprocity, which is an important element. And something here we also mentioned that is part of this approach, intercultural approach, And how the cosmovision
Entonces, un elemento
of the
fundamental
town is part
de
of this process
nosotros y nosotras que encarna ser comunidad,
that
vivir en
makes us community,
comunidad, trabajar
that
en
allows to live as
comunidad.
a community, to
Es
work as a
exactamente
community.
eso. Se
What does
trata
this
de
mean?
convivencia
It means of
como un factor
living
complementario,
a
solidario,
complementary
cooperativo, donde
solidarity
la comunidad nos
cooperative
enseña la ayuda
where the
mutua,
community
el trabajo en
community here
equipo. No
work as a
todo el
family.
tiempo va una familia. En el
We go
campo está la
to the field as a
familia.
family, and that the family is
Es
there
un
present.
trabajo colectivo
How is that work?
que
How
se
is that
hace de
collective
manera
work
organizada.
that is done in an
Existen
organized
las
way?
sombras y dificultades en las
We have the
comunidades,
shadows there
en
as
los
well in the
territorios
communities.
indígenas,
In
pero
the
existe
territory is going to be
esperanza en la
present.
colectividad
But we also have the
que se
collective
basa en
strength
la sabiduría
that is based on
ancestral,
wisdom,
en
on
la
sensuous
diversidad de
wisdom,
los
and
idiomas,
maintaining the diversity
los
of the
pueblos
languages,
originarios de los
how the original
lugares.
languages
Eso
of those towns
que representa la
represent
cosmovisión,
the
las filosofías,
cosmovision,
los
the philosophy,
planteamientos de vida.
the statements of
No
life.
es lo mismo decir
It's not the
buenos
same to
días
say good morning
que en mi pueblo decir
that in my town say
que quiere
ik,
decir
which means
salió el sol, salió la
the
claridad,
sun is out,
ya vino la
clarity is there.
oportunidad
We have another
urgente de
opportunity
avanzar.
to
Es
progress.
diferente, no es lo mismo decir buenos días.
So it's not the
Cómo la
same to say
filosofía
good
y los
morning.
idiomas de
Also, how
nuestros
does that
lugares
philosophy allows
y
us to have
cómo
that
la
strength?
cosmovisión ha
And how the
nutrido la identidad
cosmovision
de los pueblos,
nurtures
aún a
that
pesar de
identity,
toda la colonización.
even with that process.
Esa comunalidad, esa
And
convivencia,
that
ese
communality
diálogo
and that
que es
process
cotidiano,
that is part of the day to day
permitimos pasar
that
a
allows us to
plantear la
have
comunidad y no la
that the
individualidad.
community and not
Pasamos
individuality.
del territorio comunal
So we
a
go
la
from communal
propiedad
territory
privada,
and not the private
de la
property,
competencia,
not
compartencia,
competition that is
más allá de
sharing
la competencia.
rather than competition.
Es diferente compartir.
So it's a different perspective.
Yo
We're sharing.
no tengo elementos de
I am not here with the
metodología
elements
para dar
inside
una
me
encuesta,
to
pero
do
alguien me puede
methodologies.
decir,
I have
oye,
an
yo
issues
puedo
there, but someone in the
competir,
group does.
porque si estamos compitiendo, cada quien va a querer
Because if
hacer
we're competing, then everyone's going to do his own approaches, their own
nuestra
case
forma.
studies,
Pero si hacemos
at the best
trabajo de
protocol.
compartencia,
But if we're working together
vamos a
as
compartir.
community, then we're going to
Por
share.
ejemplo, muy breve, alguien
For
no
example,
tuvo el horario
briefly,
para la tutoría
somebody didn't
y no
have
le
a
puede
schedule for
ayudar.
tutoring,
Entonces, en este
got
proceso
together
no
with somebody
vamos a
else.
competir, vamos a
So we're not here
compartir.
competing. We're here to share.
Y del politeísmo al
And from
monoteísmo,
polytheism to
del
monotheism,
monoteísmo. ¿Por
not
qué? Porque
monotheism.
dicen un solo Dios,
Why?
un solo planteamiento.
Because they say
Y si
one God,
tenemos
one plan,
dilemas,
one statement.
diversos dioses.
No.
Es que
What if we have
tenemos todo
different
es
gods?
sagrado,
We have
que todo
everything
tiene vida.
sacred. We say everything has
Desde
life.
esa perspectiva
And
vamos a
from that
trabajar.
perspective,
El agua
we
es
need to
sagrada,
work. Water is sacred.
la vida, la espiritualidad nos
Life is
enseña
sacred.
sobre todo
Spirituality is sacred. And it teaches us.
todo lo sagrado solo con salir a un bosque.
So the
Y
sacred is when we go to the forest, to a
incluso
river,
en nuestras cocinas, en nuestros espacios de
even in our
trabajo,
kitchen, in our
todo
workspaces.
eso tiene vida y es sagrado.
All of that is alive.
Vivir y convivir en la lógica del
To be
intercambio.
in that liberty,
Ese es un
living and
elemento de la
consisting in that logic of
cosmovisión,
exchange
más no en el
rather than
acaparamiento,
hoarding
ni en la concentración, ni en el
instead of
mecanismo.
concentration and
De la
business.
diversidad,
We go from
superar la
diversity
uniformidad para
and get rather
fortalecer
than
la
uniformity
diversidad.
to strengthen diversity,
Superar ese
to
liberalismo
go above
para la
that
interdependencia.
liberalism, to
Dependemos
get to that interdependence.
dependemos del agua.
We
Si se
depend on
acaba el
water.
agua en la
If
humanidad,
water
en el
finishes
mundo,
today, comes to an end today, water, the world
lo
will
tengo
end.
que cuidar porque me cuida.
So I gotta take care of it
Si
because
mi
it's life. Water is life.
abuela descansa,
If my grandmother is
es
resting today,
conmigo, ella me cuidó,
what's gonna
ella
happen with
me
me?
dio
She invited
educación.
me
Yo dependo de
and she
ella.
taught me.
Bueno, que se haga lo que
So what can I do?
quiera.
Like I can do this.
Ese es un enfoque liberalista.
So
Nosotros
that's a liberalistic
tenemos
way.
ese tejido de
But we have a different
interdependència
form. We have that network of
por ese
interdependence
cual
with everything we do.
cuidamos todo.
And we take care of that. We take care of
Somos
everything.
sujetos
And to be
políticos
collective
colectivos
political
que nos
subject
basamos en la
based on
relacionalidad y somos
relationality
sujetos
and on being
relacionales.
relational subject.
Es decir,
That
en
is
los términos andinos diríamos
in
ser
Andrian Chak
puente.
in the terms is called
Conocemos
chakana.
muy bien el ser chacana, el ser puente.
And this means to be
En
a bridge.
términos maya quiché
In
diríamos
the Maya
el ser
Quiche, we
bats,
say
el
to be
ser
bats,
tejedoras y
to be
tejedores
weavers and
y
articulators
articuladores y tejedores de procesos
and weavers of the
interculturales. ¿Qué
processes.
quiere decir? Ser
What does
sujeto
this mean?
político no es protagonizar,
This is not to be a star.
decidir por, no,
It's not to
decidir
decide. It's
cómo
let's
construimos
go together.
nuestro
Let's weave
futuro.
together. Let's
Ese
articulate
es el
together.
enfoque también que
Let's do
estamos
this
teniendo
together. That's the kind of the approach that we
y
want.
los múltiples y diversos
And the multiple and
conocimientos
diverse
de los
cosmic feelings
diferentes pueblos y
and the
culturas.
cosmic knowledge
No
from
hay
different
solo un
native peoples and
conocimiento,
cultures.
no hay solo
There's
una
not only
vivencia,
one.
hay
There's not only
distintas
one cosmic feeling, cosmic
vivencias y
vision. We have
cosmovisiones,
multiple and diverse
hay
cosmic feelings
distintos pasados
and cosmic
históricos
knowledge
en
from different
diversas
native peoples and
geografías.
cultures who have
Lo
different
vimos
historical
cuando
background
compartieron cuál era el
based on
contexto, cómo
geographies.
fue la
When we talk
colonización
about the
en
context and the
África, en
colonization
Asia y en
in
Oriente.
Africa, in
Vimos
Asia, and
que
Latin
son
America,
pasados históricos
we saw the
distintos,
difference. We
pero
saw
con
different
elementos
paths
comunes que se dan
with
en
seven common
geografías
points
distintas,
in spite of the
geografías,
geographies.
economías diversas,
So diverse modes of
modos de
production, different
producción
economies,
diversos,
different ways of production,
lenguajes, idiomas,
different languages,
formas propias de
multiple
verse
ways of
y de
developing
producir
knowledge
el saber, de producir
of
la
that.
vida. Entonces reconocemos que no existe una
So
humanidad
we
única,
acknowledge that. We acknowledge that we're diverse
trascendente al tiempo y al
and we
espacio.
transcend in that
Tampoco
time and
existe
space.
una única cosmovisión.
There's not only one
Estos
cosmovision.
procesos de globalización que quieren
Based on this
imponernos
process,
un solo
they want
pensamiento,
to do
un
one way
solo
of thinking,
planteamiento de vivir.
one thing of life and
Solo
when to work.
reconocemos que existe
We
una
recognize
humanidad
that we
universal,
have a diverse mode,
diversa, con sus propios sistemas, con sus
that there
propias
is no universal
manifestaciones,
humanity. We
con lo
transcend to
que
the
nosotros
spaces of time and
llamamos
space.
nuestro planteamiento de investigación.
And that's how we
Por
put that in
ejemplo,
our
las
research.
epistemologías del sur
For
y del
example, in the
colonialismo
epistemologies,
nos hablan de
ecology of knowledge, we talk
decolonizar,
about decolonizing,
despatriarcalizar,
depatriarchizing,
desmercantilizar,
decommodifying,
desuniversalizar el
of
conocimiento.
deuniversalizing knowledge.
Y esa es una tarea
And
que
that's
lo
part of the task
vamos
that
a
we have,
poner allí,
that we're going to give
en
life
nuestros
to our
estudios.
research,
Y tiene que
through
aparecer
each one of our
presente
studies,
en
but it needs to
nuestros
be present
protocolos de
now
investigación.
in our
Nos va
protocols
a
of research,
enseñar a las
because it will allow
mujeres
us to see
como
women
sujetos de
as
las
subjects,
formaciones
as cosmogenic
políticas de
and
y
political knowledges and
transformadores
transformative
políticos y con capacidad transformadora.
with the capacity to
Somos
transform.
pueblos originarios de
We
una
are
sociedad
original
en
towns
evolución.
of women
Conocemos
in
ese camino.
evolution. We
Nos
have
permite
not been
tener
left behind.
ejercicio de nuestras
We see
autonomías
exercise of
y
autonomy
autodeterminación.
and self-determination.
Y ahí es fundamental
And
que
that's how we,
superemos
and this is
ese
important too,
extractivismo
because you overcome
y el
epistemic
epistemicidio.
extremism and
Sí,
epistemicide,
vamos a
meaning
llegar con los pies
we're going to be
descalzos,
able
con
to
humildad,
be go
no a
on a
sacar,
barefoot
no
with
a sacar
humility.
los
We're
saberes
not go
de
there to get the
conocimientos
knowledge, the
para un
cosmo
estudio
knowledge
de caso
for
y
one case
proclamarlo
study,
de
for
6
one
meses
study,
y se acabó. No,
for 6 month case study.
vamos a hacer ese ejercicio
We're
de
here doing this
autonomía y
exercise
autodeterminación
with
para
autonomy
que
and
la comunidad
self-determination,
dice
where the communities are going to
qué nos
say
van a dar, cómo lo vamos a
what they're going
hacer,
to give us,
cómo
how
lo
they're going to
vamos a
do it,
aprender.
how
Entonces
we're going to need it.
dejamos de ser parte de ese
So we
centro
stop doing
nuclear
part of the
que ha
process,
sido extractivista, que ha querido depredar y acabar o saquear los saberes.
and so
Y
we're not there to
vamos a
steal the knowledge.
recuperar y fortalecer
And we're going to
nuestras
recover
capacidades colectivas,
the
donde
collective life,
decimos sí podemos
where
gestar
we're saying, yes, I can do this. We can get this
no más
knowledge.
estudios que
No more
pignoreguen
studies
otros estudios,
that are going to be here.
estudios donde se
We're going to have
visualice
studies. We're
ese
going to
saber que
visualize
ustedes tienen.
that knowledge that they're
Esos
going to be shared with us.
pensares de ustedes,
Those assessment
sus
thinking
pueblos de sus
of your
comunidades y de
of your
las
own
personas
communities
con las que van a
and the
trabajar.
people with whom you're going to be relating with.
Y donde, digamos,
And we're going
gestemos
to saying
nuevos cosmos
we're going to generate
colectivos, donde
different
no
collective
solamente
knowledges based on
son
one person.
el grupo
It
de
wasn't
abuelos,
only one group of 20
o de
people
10, no solo
or
fueron
10
las
people.
abuelas,
It
también
wasn't only the
fueron el río,
grandparents. We
el
spoke
agua
to
que está enfrente o
the
está
lake that
cerca de la
crosses that
casa.
river, that
Nos
community.
habló del río,
We
nos
spoke to the
habló de los
river.
bosques,
We
nos
spoke to the
habló de esos
forest.
territorios
We spoke to
depredados
the territories,
que acabados dicen
which once they're
estamos
done,
muriendo.
they're saying we're dying.
Y
We're
ahí es
hungry.
donde
We're
estamos.
thirsty.
Cuando sentemos a quienes participaron, me
And
encantaría
we
que
put
también
who would say,
el
I would love for you to
el
put
agua
down the river, the
es don.
forest,
Para unos va a decir, eso no
the
nos
land where we
corresponde.
were,
Y eso
because those are
para
spaces.
nosotras sí cuenta,
But for us, it
porque
does.
nos habló.
You might think it wasn't count,
Y
but they were
recuperamos y
there. They're
fortalece
present.
también ese ejercicio dialógico
And it recovers and strengthens the collective
entre
capacities
géneros, entre
of
pueblos
creation and
indígenas,
generation of cosmic knowledge.
intergeneracional. Ese ejercicio de ese diálogo.
There's
Y hay
exercises
otros enfoques, y aquí quiero
that and
resaltar
other
también otro
approaches that I
enfoque
want to take into
importante.
account,
Están
that
las
I want to
teorías de la
highlight.
descolonialidad, que
We
por
have the
supuesto
colonization theory, that might have an impact on our research. Us as Mayans, we speak about in the South. We talk about one tiet, meaning that's our approach. We're not thinking about women that are developed in sustainable approach. I never done a research in that sense, or at least I'm not on holistic approach. I talk about complementarity, about justice between men and women, with our own leaders, with our own people, which are part of our lives, and that continue to be there even when we leave. So that part is going to guide our research as well. The good living for the people, for the generation, for the cosmos, for Mother Earth and the members. That intersectionality that I'll give from our towns will say the work that we do, that you all do, and our intersectional approach where I do my research, recognizing that women that we're going to be working with, the terms of violence, they are part. They have a context. They belong to a history, to oppression and resistance. And we have
You know,
different
we have
approaches.
generations that there are women that are
And they're
going
going to
to
be
be
there through their
marked
lives, through their ages,
as
through their being.
people who are coming from their own being. But how do women do just for being a woman? It's also going to allow us to see what is that condition of poverty or impoverishment, how it becomes more vulnerable, how geographical distance in which they live to have access to health and justice. All that part, that when we do an analysis, we're not going to do it isolated. Everything that has to do with that policy of geographical policy as peoples, and that allows us to see when we do our research that person, that people, that organization has a past, that it has a present, that it's not unlinked from that story, that it has a future or a life perspective. With it, they have to think of life. My dream is that this lake grows again, so that it awakens again, and that our seeds that we have here in jars can flower and flourish again in the earth, that we can resurrect the happiness in murals. That's their perspective. Not development or accumulation, it's about life. It's about double and multiple feeling thinkings. That's Kavagu looking back, looking to the present, and looking to the future that we don't know about. To see the entire story of these women, of these peoples in all their contexts. And to see that reality has shadows and problems, but there's also light and strength and resistance, and the focus based on the rights, meaning those collective rights of the peoples of the Mother Earth. We are alive, we have dignity. We are not objects, we're people. That would be the good living that allows us to live and work towards predetermination and recognize, respect, and make use of our collective rights as women, of territories of rights, our cosmos knowledge that are historical and collective, that are there, that are present, and the construction of communitary economies, of health systems, of food systems, and all the organizational systems that exist, all for the good living. This is our focus to see several aspects, because you would say, how are we going to base? And the methodology is the coming together of routes and feeling, thinkings, and cosmo knowledge that are going to allow us to pick apart those oppressions. And a side that allows us to heal. We're going to talk about violence. We're not going to victimize that person. We're going to allow this person to let go of pain. And the process of dialogue that we do with them allows them to heal, to clean. And we're going to talk of all the contamination and the pollution. What pain did it generate? What disease did it generate? And how we are going to create a critical reflection to decolonize in our processes, in our research processes, not after, but during. How are we going to decolonize and deconstruct the internalized power struggles? So methodology needs to help us to do this process. So what do I do with this interview, for example? That you sit next to the road, you sit underneath a tree, in the kitchen of the person, wherever you feel it's the best way. Maybe bring some flowers, put a candle. And so tell me, how do you feel? Tell me, how have you been doing? You take a little bit of water for the sadness. We use the leaf of orange with an infusion, the water of ruda. If somebody if tense, they give them pillow leaves, and we take them that. We bring them that. You say, oh, they're not just interviewing me, they're helping me. Move your hands. Let's leave your sadness here. What happened? And then we are weaving and we are healing. And maybe something she said connected to me. As a researcher, you don't disconnect. You will be connected. And if we have to cry with them, we will. But we're going to tell her, get up. You can do this. Because you're going to be an example. Just like this happened to you, just like you get over this, you're going to help others get over this because you bring a mission. You'll be able to serve others because you already lived this. So that's another process that we do. And that's where you awaken your strength. You say, don't worry, tell me. No, you flow with it. We don't do 30 interviews. We do it's how we interview. That's the route. That's the methodology. We're going to listen. We're going to deconstruct. We're going to heal. We're going to generate. What is for you violence? I'm not going to copy everything that the theory of violence says, but what is it for her? To me, it's pain, but it's also strength, and that my land dried, and I wasn't able to plant. I wouldn't want to eat. I didn't want to sleep. I wanted to kill myself. That's what I was told. I wanted to disappear, and my house became sad. My plants died. What is she telling me then? What is violence? And it hurt me from how my kids couldn't go to school. It's not just her, it's how everything around her was affected. And from those statements and from those lives, we built a weaving of a new statement from women's perspective of what violence is. For example, what is health, depending on our subjects as well. And we're going to build collective cosmo knowledge that is emancipatory, that are freeing and transformative. Why? Because it's not just going to stay there with pain. We're going to establish how did she make it to get out? She almost didn't have her hand. She lost her baby. How did she get out of it? What I did was I was in the floor. I couldn't breathe anymore. And I remembered my mother and my grandmother. It's a strength that gets us out of this, and we have to establish how do we get out of this, and it's how do we write about violence from the perspective of victims, not from the perspective of victims, but from the perspective of a woman who survives and moves forward. Is it a company that burned the houses or the forest? How do we do that process? And the methods and the research methods are going to be suitable to intercultural research. And with that, we see the qualitative method, because beyond just stating facts that are important, it talks to us about that feeling thinking and about that cosmo feeling. Everything that says so much, it's not subjective. The geographical method, the life stories are also ways of establishing facts with key elements. We ask them questions that allows them to tell us the key facts, where we can see pain, but we can also see resistance. So I have these key questions, and with that, we build what we need, and that story, that life story of that case story, the biographies, the weaving of it all. And we have to establish techniques that give them a voice, that give women a voice, so that the children can express themselves as well. Don't tell her what she has to say. Let her express herself. And what is you do this dance? We do it when somebody dies, when somebody heals, when somebody's sick. So we go to the river and we do it. And how is the dance? Oh, let's do it together. How do we make people speak and the land speak? If I'm going to talk about environmental, that way you see that plantation where you see everything is gone. Oh, tell me, how is it? Get them engaged, because the earth is speaking, because the earth is telling us how it's doing. Let's go to the river. It's walking, it's doing the work, and we can't be so ambitious. We have to be able to work at the rhythm of the person that we're talking to, and have whoever needs to speak to us from their feeling thinking, from their cosmo knowledge. And what methods allow this to happen in the research with a political intent? First of all, that it's a liberating and transformative collective practice, a practice of collective knowledge, and a collective and real participatory practice. We have to establish techniques that this research will allow that movement, those options where we're told, yes, look, we lost, or we just realized we've been together for half a day. We went to a healer, we went to the river, we went to see how the pollution is doing, we went to see areas where we were able to protect the territory, we went to see everything, and we couldn't, I didn't even feel the time we were together. We walked, we built together. So research and participation are moments of one same process, of a collective generation of cosmo knowledge to transform these oppressive situations that are creating an impact in women and territories and peoples. And those we need to be free peoples. And we have to see that this is for healing the heart, for getting over violence. There's different ways to heal, and women will walk to go to the public ministry. Oh, but these other methods are emancipating to us. We can propose other ways of doing things. And how does this secure our self-determination as women and as peoples? That's a great challenge. I mean, that supports our research, but at the same time allows us to do this. And methodology is a real participation, establishing a real influence that is the creation of emancipatory knowledge that ensures the self-determination of the peoples and their territories, so that women participate in the planification process and in the implementation of the research, in the collective reflection, in the identification of strategies. This is why I was telling you, we do have to build and see that we build together. If we have to build relations, yes, we have to establish strategies, yes, but they have to come from those communities, from the grandmothers, from the women, from the peoples, because for them to be transformative, we need to have it from that. That's where the solution needs to be, because it needs to be sustainable in the process. And it needs to participate in the different processes. And it would be ideal if we have a ceremony in the water and an assembly that we could present the study and the plan and the routes that we're going to do. Then that somebody else says, okay, what was this work? How did this work for you? How did you feel doing this, generating this process? Well, we felt tired, for example. I'm happy. Oh, I never thought, somebody said to me, that I was going to write a book. I never thought that I was going to go ask. I always thought that I was just a healer. And now I say, oh, I have something left to leave for my children. And now she's 30 and she's a researcher, she's a senator, she lives spirits, she's a communicator, and she's a movie maker. And she has taken all the research process from the Tutohil peoples, from where she lives. She's able to do so much. So this methodology allows for change, not just in who decides, but also in who participates in the research, because it's going to allow us to modify these processes that have been established since the research. When we live these processes and we have another author, the community will be clear that before somebody comes in, there needs to be a consent that is free and that is informed, that they make the decision. They are the life and the strength of that research. And they are the ones who manage the cosmo knowledge, that they will say what goes and what doesn't, and they're going to move forward. The polls, for example, are not going to be polled. So as researchers, you guys are going to be able to teach them how it's done. So when somebody else comes in and says, okay, fine, if you're going to do some research, that's fine. But you're going to be able to teach them that they can ask, what's the benefit going to be for our people? Not money, but how is this research going to change our lives? But they have a way to do processes. and they will be able to move forward to a determination, because not just one person is going to arrive to ask for things to fool them. That's a process. How do we achieve this? Through the methodology that we implement, and that implies processes of research and learning. It implies also the creation and feedback of cosmo knowledge, meaning there already exists cosmo knowledge. We're just going to allow them to visibilize, to recreate and nourish, and we are able to articulate what grandmothers say, and what our general knowledge can tell us, based on the confrontation of the practice and the search for cosmovision, meaning research needs to be for transformation purposes, to leave actions that are going to be implemented around violence and around environmental pollution, around sexual violence against children, based on the topics that we are talking about. And these processes are of collective knowledge, and they center around dialogue and symmetrical relations and horizontal relations. I'm not going to be a researcher that comes, doesn't eat anything, brings their own food. No, somebody that joins a dynamic, and she's not more or less. And in recognizing that there are different people with different functions and roles in that community, but it's not one is not more than the other. Do you understand the weaving of that organization? And be able to bring to critical reflection that is collective and participative everything we do in a focal group around the fire and around the water in a forest. We're going to talk about how it used to be, how was the territory before, and how the process of contamination happened. It's not just, oh, tell me, and you start. No, we're going to do that dialogue to analyze cause and effect, strengthen resistance and reflection. It's very important that in our processes, in our research processes in our territories, we're allowed reflection, criticism of that reality. We have to question the systems of the peoples. We're going to do it with respect and have them do it in a participative manner that is inclusive and intergenerational. In a place, there was a group, intergenerational groups were made to talk about the violent treatment of peoples and children. And we did a group of women, a group of authorities, spiritual leads, teachers, girls and boys, mothers and fathers. Mothers on the side, fathers on the side, each person presented. And they did social dramas, they told stories. In an assembly, we had a lunch, we had a piñata. When the children did it, the children did a sociodrama where they presented alcoholism, violence of parents, mostly of fathers, mostly, and the violence of mothers and fathers, and even the mistreatment of teachers. It was a community that was alcoholized. 3 of 7 of the teachers were alcoholics. So it was all represented. And they presented 2 sociodramas, one with the problem and one with what they wanted, the changes they wanted. They acted like teachers, mothers, and fathers. A father said, I don't know if to cry or to embarrass. And we closed the event with a bishop, with a council where the grandfathers were in a circle, the children and the youth were there, and everybody were in the center. So the teachers would be in the center, and everybody gave them the bishap, their advice. And there we had fire, we had water. And if you take the advice, you wash your hands and you turn on your candle. That's what the guide said. That's what that's how we're gonna do it. And we said perfect. And some teachers were scared because there's the whole Christian situation. What does that mean? But they knew that it was a commitment. And they washed their hands and they took the advice, so that the advice didn't just stay in just words, right? Then we had mother, fathers, everyone. And then children came forward. And when the children came forward to that dialogue, instead of giving them advice, they said to them that they were going to talk, they were going to act, because the biggest advice is in our peoples is action, and they ask for them for forgiveness. I tell you this not because it's not a lie, and they would say, and a kid said, I would like, and they told their grandmother, I don't want clothes. I don't want any more cars from the United States. I want my mom and dad here, because they left as immigrants to the United States. And he told the story of how his life was with them. In their house there was no toilet, there was no flooring, and now I have clothes, I have toilets, I have books, but my mom and my dad aren't here. I ask that they come back, please, and my grandparents not to yell at me anymore. And then how do you process that? And how do you build cosmo knowledge from that intergenerational dialogue? The topic was violence in children and treating with love, and it just in one coming together that was from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then we ended with some food, and the girls and the boys said that they didn't want to have any more celebration with liquor or beer, because then everything ended in pain. And we had a lot of other elements. To teachers, they told them that. So how all of that generated a reflection and a process. And then we closed with everything we needed to do. I hope I don't tire you out. And how in the processes of reflection and in creating conscience of the problem, how this produces some change. And that research requires for us to move forward and say, yes, we need to be clear who we are talking to, who we are going to work with, and how we're going to have alliances with local actors, so that we can work processes of change, of follow-up from the inside. The characteristics of intercultural research methodology is respect of taking into account the being, feeling, perspective, knowledge, own voice, experiences of the generations, women, communities, and peoples. We said it was participative and transformative. That's how our methodology needs to be: participative, collective, that it transforms, generates criticism, and that is educational, and takes into consideration values and respect, and it takes into consideration the processes of women. Political, because it's going to generate transformation. Transformative, because it generates questioning. I've done interviews, and even when it's virtual, I felt that they were taking the information out of me. I felt very pain. It was a lot of a pain. It was very impersonal. We can't do that. We can't reproduce that. Look for a reflection, values, creating conscience of us. Oh, this is not just for the people that we're going to work with, but it's also for us as researchers as well. And another element is the methodological process. What is this process going to look like? How are we going to do this? We said who our actors were going to be and who are the hearts of our research. The community and peoples, the youth, the children, the grandmothers, the grandfathers, the men, the local wise men and women, depending on the subject. What's going to be our process? First, a stage which of a free and informed consultation, which we talked about last week. And from there, reach an agreement saying, oh, I get here and I do it. No, I ask you, I make you participate. How can we do this together? Reach those agreements. What's going to be your role as researchers and how are you going to be involved and your role before that community, because it's going to be your research. And from the beginning, we're going to say that that's how it is, because that's how it is. That's how it's going to be. It's not my research. It's the research of these people, of our women. And then we're going to create a participatory research plan, meaning that our protocol is going to be as participatory as possible. And this is going to be useful for processes that are ongoing and that are in the future. And all the methodology on the field, we can do it participatory. And how can we do it together with those who are going to be the subjects of our research? And processes that are participative in the field for the research of and the creation of facts, no more cold and invasive research processes. No, something that we have to be, that allows us to be a part of it, that allows them to feel like they're a part of it. And also the next step is to the collective production of cosmic knowledge and collective proposal for change. So it's not just moving forward and repeating testimonies. It's how from that knowledge we are going to weave. Before we do this weaving, this is weaving, for example, that's old, that has 30 years, but how at some point it was a pink, a black, white, orange threads. There were individual threads, and now it became a weaving. All these colors are those knowledge that we're going to learn from our research. That's the new knowledge. That's the cosmo knowledge and the collective proposal that we're going to write based on what we were told. Meaning we are going to build categories and definitions that are collective, not with copy and paste of what we've been told. It's writing from your cosmo knowledge and from your feeling thinking, and cosmo knowledge as your decolonized researcher, moving forth from that perspective, that colonizing perspective, and recovering that strength, that wisdom that you have. That's the challenge. And then, of course, we are able to move forward and provide support with testimony, everything that we know or that we learned. And that is the most important role that we have. Of course, with the name, with the date, but we're going to be weaving and reflecting why are we doing this? And we're going to do an analysis. And that analysis we already did alongside with them. It's a process, and we need to make sure that we don't see it as complicated. We have to flow as water. And afterwards, this is going to give us new knowledge and new action. new strategies. But when we finish the analysis on environmental pollution or invasion of territory or violence on women, we can analyze the problem, create reflection. What are the causes and what are we going to do now? What alternatives do we have? And there we're going to have the alternatives. If the problem of the violence against women and the abuse of children in schools, what are we going to do? And we're going to have proposals coming from the community. And that is going to depend on how we weave it in our study. But all of that doesn't have to come from, I'm here alone thinking, just downloading books. No, we were not downloading books because the book already spoke to us in the process of the territory where we were. That's where we identified everything. Now we need to weave. And then we'll have different moments of within the process where we're going to publish, especially how painful it is to see interviews and processes in our different languages, and we were never informed. How we see that it comes transformed in new medicines and new recipes that are being sold, and that information was taken away from us. And we see that that's not possible. We can't reproduce that. We see that the publication and socialization needs to exist. Ideally is that when the research is socialized, the community and the team that worked with you participates on this as well. And the implementation and collective follow-up is fundamental. Meaning we already have an incidence plan, a proposal, and it needs to be implemented. I mean, look, it's 8 steps, and each step has its own process. So we're not just going to stay here. What's going to happen with this? Research sometimes stay in one phase and they're not participatory. We are establishing a process and that's a responsibility to be able to have this information. What are the different stages of the process? First, we trace the horizon, the design and planification we're going to do, which is what you guys have done with your proposal. Then we go and we meet we weave into our protocol what we want, the background, the problem, the objectives, key topics, questions, the road, the methodology, from a participatory process. And we go and we work on collective feeling thinking and the implementation of intercultural research for science. That's what this means. That's what IIAP means. Oh, we're going to meet collective feeling thinking and other feeling thinkings and other knowledge and other wisdoms, not to extract. And after that process, we're going to link and weave the feeling thinking and cosmic feeling in creating and weaving. How with all the different with the different threads, you build that weave. You're able to weave that. That's going to be your report. And then we move forward and we give this a face and an energy. We agree looking at the face for the collective validation. This reflects what we said and what has been said. Oh, you didn't say this was the color. Oh, we have to unweave and do it again because we have to make sure that it's something that is collectively agreed upon. And then the final weaving, creating a final proposal. And within that research, we're not just going to have a series of problems. There's going to be story, there's going to be strategies of how to face them, what it is for them, what that problem is for them, and what actions they have. That's what we're going to combine in our structure. And then, of course, the delivery of that weaving. And we're going to say, this is a study, this is what we had. I was just a weaver, I was just a secretary. How are we going to do it? Is that going to be put away? And in our proposal, you will have people who is responsible. How do we see this, and how do we do this? These are stages, and how this is, our research is a weaving that is done together collectively. And how it integrates different key actors and people. It's not just a researcher, but you have to have the commitment to be able to be here, to want to be here and participate, that you want to be a part of this. In my case, I have worked with healers, with guides, with spiritual guides of the peoples. They have been a part of the team. They have been a part of the women's team, youth, according to the topic. But that they want to come in. So we leave people in the community that are prepared from this research process, intercultural research process, and their own methodologies that we combine with others, but that we want to be able to have that, you know, as a community, so that alliance happens. And another phase, when it's a participatory collective design and planning, it's the collective identification of the demand of new knowledge approach to what we are interested in finding out and or deepening. What do they want to know? And if we came with that, if we presented ourselves with that, we would be able to figure it out. We want you, they would tell me, we want you to come and awaken the authority of the people of our 5 municipalities, Situjilas. We need help. The other peoples have their own authority, have their own decision-making process, and we don't have that because of the political division of the parties. We don't have that. Help us. And so we did that research, and I unfortunately don't have it, but I think Angela already has it with a group in English, some research, and it has some flaws, but there are others that I can share with you. And what we did was to recover it, the organizational system and the authority system. However, that has led us to realize that the authority not only applies to us, but also it's an authority in health, it's an authority in the care and health and of the territory, care of forest, of natural resources, authority in health. That has a whole weaving, and that's where we came out. And that's where we had the healers come in and be a part of the team. And since they were interested, they moved forward. And the idea is, how do we strengthen and how do we awaken the weaving of the ancestral peoples? And now they have their own authority council of their own municipality, where we have spirit healers, people who take care of the territory, defenders of the lake, and we have people who apply justice, they have people who apply a document. 10 years ago, and it's been key in the defense of the territory. So the ideal situation is to identify what is that, what do they need, what do they want to know, and have a dialogue and an agreement of commitments and share responsibilities with the community for the definition of the IPA research. So it is participative. It's not my design, it's a collective
What key
design.
questions do we have to answer collectively? What is the issue that we're talking about? It's not just the issue. What are strategies? What strengths? What approaches are we going to take? How have you faced this? Why are we doing this research for? All right? Why? For who? And for whom are we doing this research for? How are we doing this research? Are we going to lead this? What's going to be the path? And from there, the decisions, the collective decisions that we take. And one important task here is the description of the context, of the discovery, of the condition for the research. Identify the situation and then investigate it and put it into context. Make it be able to understand it. Why is it an issue? Another element that we need to take is alliances and creations of the team. How do we do this? We need to dialogue and negotiations between the people who are going to be involved and who is going to be involved throughout the process as a whole because it's of common interest. Because it's going to leave something for them. It's going to impact their communities and towns as women. It's going to allow them to have agreements in their design, the timetable, and the commitments. Where can we come? We're thinking about working on April to May, June, July. We're going to do some things because then that's how do we do the commitments? Where I don't say I come here tomorrow. No. Here, that's what we have. This process. We organize the community researchers. We're going to lead the process and define the responsibility. It doesn't have to be 20. It can be 2, 3 people. 5, depending. Then let's do a collective learning. Let's explain the process and let them guide it. They told me I have to do a ceremony for land. I need to go to the sacred place. So if we got to go up and sing, so we bring candles, so then we bring flowers, what element to do the ceremony? Then let's see who's alive, who were in this process with them, because they're the one who know. And then they're going to say, we're not going to give you money. But here, we're going to ask to give thanks. We're going to bring food. We're going to bring something. It's not to buy the person. It's to thank the person. Because they're giving us their time. They're giving us their knowledge. They're doing this process. But here, we're going to do this. When the bread made there, like cinnamon. And then we're going to put the youth. We're going to work with the youth. We're going to work with dancing and murals. And subsequently, and the dialogue. With the maids, we're going to do the following. They're not going to give us the time. Here, the guides, there's the spiritual guides. We call them here guides. In my town, they work in spiritual healings. They contribute to the economies of the families from their context, or they heal, or they conflict interests, but they work with the energy. So how do we do this? We can't interview directly. We're first going to observe them. We're going to ask permission to observe, ask permission to see the ceremony. So we're going to go there and see. How do you know this? How do you find the clavicle? No, we're gonna go and observe. They gave us permission. They allowed us to be there. So there, can I have permission? Can I take pictures? Can I get a video? Yes, but after. And then by time, because I don't have enough time because I have enough topics about this. But I remember we did that. We observed. We listened. We answered some questions. We had a little dialogue though. We got them water because once they're done their diet, we saw how they cleared a clavicle. But then they say, "What did you do? How did you get out of your house in the morning?" I think that you fought with your mother. You were fighting. You were alligating, and then you went and got beat. You didn't put yourself in that. Moshudo, which means you're a person who gets mad quickly, reflecting. You're reactive, and this is what happened to you. You had to tell me you got to be respectful. But not only this, you spoke to your spirit. We put flowers, you watered it. You kind of have to go apologize to your mother. How did that thing go? How do you call them? The traumatologist. So that was an interview there. You got to observe. You got to listen. It wasn't so much of an interview, but to listen and observe. It's not something that they told me. I saw. They know each other. They are the wise who can give us knowledge and advise us. And then that was the first approach with the reality. And that's part of the first collective reality. And then we identify who's going to be participating. Are there documents that we need to be looking to? I mean, if I'm telling this, if they're worth it, it's because we have to protect them. What approach does that scope have? Who wrote it? What is there? Is that a strategic approach? But how did they do it? Because yes, this author tells us something. But to what light? You're looking at the towns as the emergency. But this is not. We're not an item. If we're gonna cite people, I wanted to see what's coming. I need to understand. We need to analyze, to nurture, to face, and who I'm going to be consulting with. But the heart of it is who are the people? What part of the territory am I going to visit? I am not from that community. I'm from another town. Who's going to tell me? Is this group, these advisors? Guides. Because they're my helpers. I'm going to hire the communal manager to guide me through who no. They're not my helpers. They are not there to run errands for us. They are people who are wise, who are going to give me knowledge. I'm going to guide my path. Another key element here is the approach to the collective groups. Common questions that we need to find. To prioritize the research topic through the process, and here's an exercise that we're going to tell you later on. Is the one that I'll ask you to work on. Because it's important that you do it. You should be having those questions. Just to refine detail. Dialogue with the community in order to collectively define the research topic. And the collective, the people. What else can you tell them? In my word, take approach this. Let's see. Yes, this, but what are the interests of here? And then with the community, meetings with the people where we define everything, and let's work. What are techniques, what methodologies I'm going to be using, what approaches I'm going to be approaching. What am I going to apply on that tree problem? The tree problem is very practical, but there's different. There's many issues. Here are the steps that I'm going to be doing, which is not the one that I'm not going to accept because it's saying that the issue, the people, the problem, the cause of the problem is placed at the root of the consequences of the branch. It's not only the problem, remember? The research is going to have a duality, the issue and restraint. And what are we contributing to it? Resistance, resilience, or strategies, knowing the own knowledges. So we identify the issues and the strength of the problem. First, from the perspective of the community. It can be from us. It should come from the communities. Should be conceived from their most relevant needs and interests. And they need to be adjusted and adapted according to the demands of the community. And here the community's own capacities are put into account. So the community knows, and they're not all going to be committed. So first, going to give them the elements to understand and be clear, what do we want? What are we going to be doing? I'm sorry, first we're going to identify the problem. We need to understand the nature, the characteristics, category, types, and purposes. And here we're going to answer the questions. What can I answer? What is the research intended to change and improve? And we're going to do a social cultural context analysis before we start the process. Another element is the steps of the research topic. So the accuracy of the research idea. Because sometimes at the beginning we can have a very broad topic. So we need to find the demands of the needs. What do we have? The time, resources, responsibilities. To be more precise, we need to identify the facts that have an impact on the problem. So if I'm very clear, what is our research idea? What are the strengths and the problem? And the strategies, the resistances that I have to face that problem? What effects are coming to have an impact on this? And what is the capacity of resistance and the resilience that we have present? Then we're going to define the environment or context in which a problem is developed. What is the context in the area? Is it organized of the town? And what context is particular of the area? Based on that community, of that group, or the reality of the women in general, based on the topic that we're going to be working on. So should I be speaking on the context of the community, or the community context, and how does it fit with the context of the territory and the country? What is the particularity? So we go from the broad to the narrow of what we want to be researching. For example, let's say we're going to be investigating the process of pollution, environmental pollution, and the capacity of resistance of the town, of the town people, with the contamination of mining, because of mining, and the community. So put it into context the issue and the capacity of resistance. That's the first thing that we need to start weaving. And then ask some questions for the research that are going to serve as guides during the research stages. We have specific questions that are going to guide, going to be based on that research. And then the questions that are going to be divided through the different stages, which I'll be explaining. In the course of the research questions arise from events and phenomena in the social cultural context in the communities. So this is part of it. This is part of the process. I have a core question. To answer this question, through activities in the farming, in 5 communities in the Mayan territory, the precision of what is the process? What is the knowledge that we have? The main question is, what is the knowledge practice, the essential knowledge practice in agricultural activities by the Manayan people? So this study is going to be looking at, what is it going to look at? The ancestral knowledge, what practices they have in the communities in the agricultural area. Step 2, or step B, identify the facts that have an impact on the problem. So we're talking about the importance of developing research processes on this topic, mainly due to the use and the loss of these traditional practices as a result of the education processes. Agricultural practices, ancestral traditional practices. What's happening to them? Are they still being done? Why haven't they been used? What are the causes that they weakened and that made these practices and all this knowledge, for example, manure process, fertilizers, which was a practice, how they were made, the waste that we used that fertilizer, the animal waste, the animal manure, why was it substituted? What was the cost? Because of the evolution of the green thing, when they come into Mayan territory and got related to the following process with the capitalism and that approach, it's also the extractivist of the process that came, and then we formulate the whole process. For example, here, in this case, they're going to go into 5 communities that have different change communities who have had contact with these people and did not take into account the practices. They have influences for the community or the churches. Have they come and sell products? So how does that have an impact? This is a common example. Then the other one is the D step. Here we have a research question. We have a core question. And in this scenario, we have the following question. What is the role of having contact with other peoples in the process of transcolorization and the loss of the Mayanes people inherent values? From the core question, we come to this. From the cosmogonic world of the Mayanas, what is the cultural meaning of the philosophy of the people on the preservation and conservation of the environment? That's another question. What ancestral agricultural knowledge and practices? What is the impact of Mother Nature? And that can also come up here. What knowledge and practices are still in the community? And what mechanisms allow them to still be there? What has been the system for organization of the systems of the Mayana people for the safeguard and defense of their ancestral agricultural system? What demands, proposals, and actions were strengthening their agricultural system and territory in the face of increasing threats from the surroundings, from the extractivism of weakening on their food security? How has that topic can be an impact? And here we're linking analysis of cost, root cause, but we're also linking the recovery of this resilience and the strength. From the research standpoint, on the agricultural research, it is necessary that the people who are part of this team analyze together, along with the communities, the alternative solutions to the problems identified in the research. So what solutions can we come up with here? What are the issues and how do we weaken the practices and the contamination of the and so here we have different proposals come up. So the questions are clear, but they come from a root analysis. Now, how we put this together within topics? This is here for me. This is key. This is very important. I want to have a pivot up in here. It's 8:46 right now. We're good on time. I'm going to stop right now because I might fall asleep. I'm going too fast, perhaps. If you have some questions, please, in this moment, because this is important. This is very operational, but it's very important. Dom is falling asleep. You have questions here, please, if you have comments? Can I continue?
I have questions, Lorena. So my questions, correct me if I'm wrong, how to limit ourselves as a researcher, because due of the times, and then we have many need some response. For instance, is that enough if I just interview, for instance, to family, to members of family, or to indigenous leaders, to youth? So how we have how as a researcher set our boundaries in terms of the response that we need to get during the research? That's the first question. The second questions, some indigenous people, they have some taboo, right? Taboo, they don't want to speak, and it's quite difficult to get the consent from them. So so how we you know, I don't want to get, you know, some they have like a do and don't in their daily life. So how we mitigate this, based on your experience as well, for our research? I think that's all first, for my questions. Thank you, Lorena.
Primero, gracias, Nuquila.
Thank you, Nukila. Here, the amount of people is going to depend on the topic of the research topic. Because for you to be able to, we know our topic, it's not going to be just research an issue. So for that, we can say we're going to be able to have an exercise there, who you're going to be consulting with, who you're going to be talking to. So it's not based on this 30 interviews, 40 interviews. We need to find our research that allows us that the people we're going to be talking to are going to be the heart of our investigation, are people who also have knowledge and experiences on the topic. So we're going to be talking to grandparents or grandfather. And in that knowledge, in that community, we only have 3. And I put this together with the other question. For that, it's very important that we are able to establish contacts, relationships with the people in their communities, people who keep people, not to use them, because yes, with people who are going to help us, who can have that contact. Because it's not the same that me, who am I Lorena, who's not known, who I live in Quetzalcoatl, in another territory, come here to the mountain or to Quechí town, which is, I don't know how many kilometers away, to, let's say, 8 hours away from me. And a community that once I get to the third house, I have another 3 hours to get to another house. And I get there without knowledge. I have to find the contact, the people who can help me, who work in that area, who are going to be able to feel that the research, who's not going to be make me. They're going to be people who are going to be owned in this territory, who are going to own this research. I'm sorry. So we need to establish context beforehand who are core to that community in that territory, who can we can talk to, and can help us establish with who are the decision makers within the communities. So once we feel that it's a collective approach, and that's the open, and that will help me open doors, because I can come tomorrow and be there. Yeah, you told me that you are the person to talk to. Impossible. At least I wouldn't be opening the doors to any of you, to an unknown person. But if I have to be another process, I don't have to be. I don't need 10, 20 people in one person, one day, one attitude that I have, with a relationship that I have. I want to consult this. I'm going to talk with 3 grandmothers, which are these are the key persons. What is your topic, Nukila, again? What is your research topic, Nukila?
About the land ownership rights and land ownership of the indigenous women.
Muy bien, perfecto.
Perfect.
Usted
So, for example, you're going to come.
ahí es clave. Quédese en ese territorio, usted lo va a hacer en una sola comunidad.
You're going to do it in one community only, right?
Muy
You're going to be in
bien.
one community?
Entonces,
Yes.
Yes, only one community. Yeah.
¿sí? Muy bien.
Yeah.
En esa comunidad seguro hay
So in
mujeres
that
que
community,
están siendo
you're going to find a group of women who are being affected
afectadas por la tierra.
because they don't have access to land. So, for example, there's an organization of women there.
Puede usted llegar.
So with them, they're going to start with.
Antes de ir a otro lado, con ellas trabaja.
So before those are the ones you're going to start with.
Podemos trabajar esto juntos.
Hello, can we work on this process?
Estudio para ustedes.
This is going to be a study for you
Confrontar porque el tema de tierra es un tema fuerte y sobre todo
because this is a strong topic, especially
sistema patriarcal.
in the practical land
Es un
where the man it belongs to the man.
sabemos
So it's a topic of control, right? We can't. They say it doesn't exist. It's part of the life that they have there. So there we say, who do we consult with? But we refine with them. Who can we talk to? And that's not going to create any conflict. They're going to take. We're going to go one day to work with these people, to talk with them. We suggest that we go to these people because they're the ones that are known. It's going to be a lot easier to reach people. So you know what? Let's say when we get there, this is expensive, whatever. Yes, but something significant of the community as a way of thinking. I don't know how it's the thinking in the different context that you guys live in. But if you establish that contact, they're going to allow you to find information. They're going to be telling you what to do. Let's do interviews. So I say we're going to do a focus group to talk about land. What is the land for the grandmothers, for the children, and adults? Let's invite 12 people per se. For grandfathers, for youth, for adults. Just as that example. It's not the amount. It's the people who can give us the input. They need to have people who are interested, they have experience, and they can help us a proposal. But you don't live there, so you don't know. So you got to be able to find the organization of women who work there and help them guide you. So it's not to kill us just here. We're here. We're going to be discussing this topic about land. But it's not only about that the man going to take the land from the man. No. It's to recover the value of the land. And that's how it starts. That's the scope. How do you approach it? What do the guys say, the girls say, the boys say, the grandfather says, the grandmother says? What are the elements that they're going to provide us? Because if we go from a different scope, it has to be from women, right? From the complementary of the land. This is a common good. Land is a common good. And that's the principle of that town. Where do we lose it? When we lost that sense of collectivity. And that's how we do this. And so then the man is not only invading. We're not there to take the land from the man. And I'm sorry because of the time, but when we talk about the land in a place, the case that we present, we began with a case. A woman who was a victim of violence, who was beaten, and who did not denounce it and just resist it. Because they say, I can't say anything. I don't have a house. I don't have a land. I depend on the work of my husband. I have 4 kids. I have to stand it for my kids. Where should I go? I don't have lands. I don't have heritage. The land, my husband is the owner of this land. And this is what my mother-in-law tells me. Even if I get beaten, what do I do? So in her case, that was a breaking point to talk about the land. And then we go, the contamination of the land, whatever, it's contaminated, we're losing this. So if I talk about the land, then yes, we talk to the authorities in that area, the white people of that area. We told them about the case. What do you think that person tells us? This was her grandchild. Because she didn't have a land, she needs to be getting beat up by their husband. Not the face, but just saw the bruises, the consequences of that crime. What would you do? What would be the adjustment that we did? She's just withstanding it because she doesn't have the land, because she doesn't know where to plant. She's abused by the father-in-law, sexually abused by the father-in-law. It served as a maid to their in-laws, to her brother-in-laws, and the husband beat her. And she had to take on it, and the mother-in-law as well, with that attitude of control. And she had to withstand it because she didn't have where to go. What would you do? Who you gave life? What would you say? It's not your daughter. How was your daughter? Why did you put Juana to her? Because that was my mother. My dead mother that was her name. How would you feel if grandmother Juana, if that child was being beaten up? And that's how we started the dialogue. So why do women don't have land? So you need to create this and create a situation, and we began this dialogue. And what concepts do we have? All right, then we started talking about this. What solutions can we bring? Why do the women have land? Because if we give land to the women, they're going to marry from other people, and then we're going to have people from other coming in. And that's what we have mining here. So what strategies can we get there? So what are the paths can we take? And why? How? And why do we lose land here? And so we started analysis. So it's a dialogue where we find the different type of situations we have. So how do we put this into context, right? Because when we come back here and we start hearing this, because there are dialogues. And that's how we work, as an example, brother. And then we did groups. What is mother? What is the land for the people, for the children? For the grandmother, is her mother and father. For other, is a resource. Each one has a different interpretation. For women, it's a strength for living, for life, for food. So each one has an interpretation of the land. So why does the land only belong to men? And that's a dialogue. And let's say in different groups. And then together around what? What do we put around in the center? Around land. We did it in the fields. We can't in the field. Okay, let's find a room and then put a little bit of grains of our land, some fruits, water, different symbols of women and boys and girls, and it creates a different. I don't know if I went too far, Nukila, but you asked me a question and I'm giving you a different analysis. But this is kind of my answer for you. So how many people do you want? Who are they? That's going to be depending on you and the group of people that you put into contact beforehand. So that's how do we get everyone involved? So and that way we can also allow to create teams. And how we have the proposal can have life. It has and that will be the way. And if somebody else is there, then there's a dialogue, right? Acknowledge it. Somebody's gonna tell you this also person, you can do this, you can do that. But also this is a way. Or just a suggestion. I don't know if you agree, if you find something different there. Is that okay, Nukila?
Thanks, Lorena. It's really enriching my, yeah. Thanks so much for your explanation. It's clear now.
Sí, estoy clara. Ay,
Muy bien. Gracias. Muy bien. ¿Otra pregunta, compañeras?
somebody else has another question. If not, we'll take our break. Just keep thinking.
Yo sí les digo, hay caminos, hay posibilidades, aún con el tiempo corto que tenemos. Como me dice una abuela, no te preguntes cuánto tiempo te queda.
Don't talk about time.
Vamos a hacer con el tiempo y con lo que tenemos. Y armonicémonos. No nos
And we put harmonize this.
no, ya no hacemos nada. Armonicémonos. De verdad les invito cuando tengan
To analysis there. Just like the service right now, put it in the water, in the home, clean it. We put it in a reference, and let's let it flow. So your proposals have life, they have strength. It's 9:02. We're gonna take a break.
No sé, hay una pregunta de Fátima o un comentario. Sí, si lo traducimos, por favor. Sí, es posible, es
It
posible.
is possible.
Al menos por el tiempo, yo diría
Yeah, it is possible. Based on the time, I would say 1 or 2 communities at max to be able to do a comparative analysis because we find the situation. I'm saying based on time, gotta be communities that are close together, that are accessible. Thinking of you guys, thinking about on the time that we have, can we do it in more than one communities? Yes. But take into account that it need to be very organized. It has to be on the research topic, on the distances, accessibility to those communities. So yes, it is possible. You got to take those issues into account to be able to be very very focused on the process. But yes, it does not mean that we can't go other places, but take into account the different context that you're going to be taking about the research, based on your research.
muy bien. ¿Sí? ¿Habrá alguna otra pregunta?
Yeah.
Entonces ahora, sí, perdón, ya. Lo que vamos a hacer ahora, entonces nos tomamos y vamos a tomarnos los 10 minutos.
We're going to take our 10-minute break. Please, student, let's mark this 10 minutes and we come back. And we're back.
Muy bien, bienvenidas.
All right, welcome back.
Vamos a continuar.
We're going to continue.
Quizá esté un poquito
Perhaps it might be
de alguna manera porque estoy hablando, pero
a bit tedious because I'm repeating this, but this part is very important. I'm speaking a lot, but I would like to listen to you. But I will ask randomly, voluntarily, what is the research question? What is the core question that's going to guide Jesse's question? Jesse, I see your camera is on. What is your core question for your research? I have Naina too, and then I have me. And who else? Who else? Vivian? Fatima? Samai? Ali. All right. Very randomly, what is the core question of your research? What's guiding your research?
Gracias. Mi
Thank you.
pregunta de
My core
investigación,
question for the research is,
ahorita es ¿cuáles son esos
what are
conocimientos
the knowledges, the traditional
en
knowledges
torno
in
al
terms
cuidado de la
of the
naturaleza,
care of nature,
específicamente
specifically speaking,
agua, tierra
water, earth,
y los cerros?
and the hills and the mountains?
Gracias, Jessie.
Thank you, Jesse. I won't forget your question. Naina, what is the core question for your research?
Hello everyone. So my research question is, let me see my screen. Economic condition of Tamil women. What is the economic condition of Tamil women? They are the marginalized community in Nepal, so they are backward. So I want to do research on what is the actual economic condition of Tamil women. Thank
Muy
you.
bien. Muy bien. No olviden su pregunta y luego vamos a ir.
Don't forget your question, all right? We're going to be explaining this process as we go. Daisy? What is the core question? Daisy first. Pregunta es,
Cada una. ¿Sí? Ah, muy bien. Sí.
Daisy, you can put it in the chat. That's fine. You can put it in the chat. But please mute yourself. Thank you.
Muy bien. Pasamos miente. Sí. Sí, podríamos pedirle a Anaya que nos pueda
Perdón, ya está su pregunta ahí.
compartir su pregunta de investigación.
Ananya, what would your question? Ananya, what would be your question?
Liz Samay.
Liz and Samai. Fatima, Liz, Samai, and them afterward. And last, Nukila. So Fatima? Anaya, I'm sorry.
Y si no pasaríamos. Sí. Por favor. Muy bien. Muy bien. ¿Cómo cerrar las brechas para generar oportunidades de educación a las niñas del mundo? Muy bien. Perfecto. Muy bien. Lo que Anaya anota.
Anaya, you can also write while Anaya is writing her question.
Dijimos Fátima, Vivian.
Fatima, Vivian.
Ya. Vivian. En lo que se prepara Vivian, vamos a escuchar a Liz.
Vivian, Alice. What is your question? Yes, Fatima, don't worry. We already read it. Thank you.
¿No le escuchamos, Liz?
¿Ahora sí me escucha, hermana?
Sí, ahora sí, ahora sí.
Sí, ¿verdad? Bueno, voy a
Sí,
ir.
sí.
¿Cómo puede la recuperación de saberes
How can we recover
agroecológicas
agricultural recovery be used as a strategy to improve the sovereignty and the food security in the children, indigenous children, to have a more sustainable approach and a nutritious approach for the production of food in my municipality?
Muy bien, gracias. Ahora estaríamos pidiéndole a
All right.
Samay y luego a Nuquila.
Samay and then Nukila. Samay and then Nukila.
No sé si Samay está.
Samay, are you here? If not, Nukila, can you please go ahead? What is your core research question?
Sorry, my research questions. Okay, I would like to read it, or can I share? I share the screen. Okay. So my topics regarding the persistence of rights and ownership of land of Rempang indigenous women amidst patriarchal culture and land grabbing. And my research questions are what is the history of struggling of indigenous women in Rempang? The second one, what are the patriarchal culture, discrimination and violence regarding indigenous women lands right and ownership? And three, how do indigenous women in Rempang Island survive and be proud of their homeland / indigenous land, as well as the resilience and survive systems? So the approach, like Lorena said, I would like to use a participatory approach, consensual and consultations with them, adopt the diversity and respect of indigenous values and history. And the methodology are dialogues, as Lorena mentions, with indigenous women, Rempang Island, and indigenous leader, youth, those who can involve in this research, as well as observation of their traditions, local wisdom, and ritual. I think that's my. I think that's all my presentation.
Muy bien, muchas gracias, Nuquila.
Thank you,
Gracias.
Nukila.
¿Había Vivian levantado la mano? Tiene usted la palabra,
Vivian, it's your turn.
No sé si anotó algo.
Vivian, if you have issues with your chat, can we check if you can write your question in the chat box?
Si me pudieran traducirla.
Okay.
Si diga Vivian, la escuchamos.
Now we can listen to you, Vivian. You want to talk?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
So, thank you. My research topic is to assess the social impacts of a cement factory on Pokot indigenous community. So my research questions include to establish a comprehensive understanding of the social dynamics within indigenous communities, including their cultural values, traditional practices, and socioeconomic structures. And another one is to demonstrate the potential social impacts of the cement factory on the indigenous community, including changes in land use, community cohesion, traditional livelihoods, and cultural heritage. So those are the two main questions that I aim to investigate. Thank you.
Muy bien, gracias, Vivian. Gracias. ¿Hay alguien más que no mencioné?
Somebody else who I didn't mention who want to share your core question?
Bueno, para un comentario general.
Just a comment, a general comment is, it is very important that we have precision. Your question has to be, it's how we're going to start. That's the heart of our research. So based on that core question, it's how we're going to be asking different questions. I'm going to guide the process and have a dialogue around it. Based on that question, you're going to be able to have the specific questions. And this is key. First, you need to understand what are we going to be researching. I'm going to make a comment on what I've researched. I need to be precise in the question. I need to be more the limit. This is a process of learning, just as we said at the beginning. We got to start on weaving. So you got to be key, be core to have the precise question. The core question is going to give the origin to other specific questions. But the core question is the one that's going to guide. It's going to be very, very limited. So if that's it, then from here you're looking different questions based on that. For example, the nucleus topic. What are the causes and impact of the access of the land for the women in a patriarchal system? What are the causes? Causes and impact, and the resistance to the land amidst the land of access. She didn't put a specific question. She told us many things. The specific questions have to have a relationship to the core question. So if I'm talking about the causes and effects that they have not having access to land for women, then my question has to be based around that. So Nokila was saying, what is the history of the women? What is the history that exists there? What is the historical process of the land for men and women there in that community? If before the colonization, what are the external factors was there? Did they have access to the land before that? For example. But the whole topic of history has to be there. And it's based on the impact that now exists. What does it mean? What does the land mean? What's the cosmogenic ancestral feeling of the land for the women, for the land, and the different generations? What are the causes, the historical causes of losing the land for women? What is the impact that not having access to land has on women? What does it represent? What does the land represent to them? For their survival, for their rights. What actions are going to stay there? What actions can I implement there to have access to land? Just for an example. And you're going to be precise, be more precise in that sense. So our question has to be linked to this process. If that is clear, the land, the colors, then we go to the second moment, which has to be prioritizing. And that's going to be related to the question, and then we're going to leave it to the general objective. It's going to allow us to have different activities in the communities, in 5 communities in the territory of Mayanga Sauniaos. That's the topic. That's the core question. The ancestral knowledge. Is there still essential knowledge practice in agricultural activities in communities of the Mayanga Sauniaos territory? So the question needs to have a relationship to the main topic. How do we put this into an objective? The objective would be to identify the agricultural ancestral knowledge practiced by the Mayangan communities and the active role of women and generations. That is what we want. That's what we want to need to accomplish through our research. So there we're looking at the knowledge and on the role of the women and their generations. Based on that question, that's the objective that we got. And from there we got the specific question. And a specific question can become a specific objective. So what is the role of having contact with other peoples in the process of transculturalization and the laws of the Mayangas people inherent in valleys? The specific objective would be to identify the role that having contact with other people has played in the process of transculturalization and the loss of Mayangas people own values. The other question would be, from the cosmogenic world of the Mayangas, what is the cultural meaning in the philosophy of these people on the preservation and conservation of the environment? And the specific objective would be to know the cultural meaning perceived in the philosophy of these people on the preservation and conservation of the environment. So how do we do this? How do we relate the topic to the question, who become the general objective, and then link that into a specific questions and a specific objective? So that's why we need to be able to define these 4 questions at max. Talk about the issues on the topics and the statement of this on the systems, their perspective, based on their networks, based on their strategies, the resilience, resistance, the strengths, and the actions. Just at least that's the way we're saying it. Just to be able to limit the process. Other questions is, what systems do we find there? To identify the knowledges that are still in the community. What is the organization system of the Mayanga people for the safeguard and defense of their central system? And here we want to establish an organization of the Mayangas people that assume the safeguard and defense of their ancestral agricultural system and the defense of the territory. And that's it. And they become that into an objective. What demands proposals and actions for strengthening and advocacy of the Mayanga people?
Y aquí el objetivo sería construir colectivamente demandas, propuestas y acciones de fortalecimiento de su
to strengthen of their own systems to defend the agricultural system. So we have 5 questions that we have, the specific questions, 1, 2 here, 3 here, that generate 5 objectives. And those objectives are going to give us a content or a chapter of our research, which means the specific objective 1 is going to give us, is going to be our first chapter, the influence of the contact with other peoples in the process of transculturalization and loss of value. And that would be our first chapter. Then we're going to have subtopics according to specific questions that are coming from this last question. The second would be the cosmogonical, economic, and cultural methodology based on common assets. So the objective gives us a chapter. So the cosmogonic, cultural, and economic significance of the Mayanga people's philosophy on agriculture, preservation, and preservation of the natural commons. So identify the ancestral agricultural knowledge and practices that have persisted in the community and safeguarding mechanisms that have been implemented. Establish the existence of organization of the Mayagna people that assumes the safeguard of defense of their ancestral agricultural system and defense their territory. That's another subject. That's another objective. And to collectively formulate demands, proposals, and empowerment and advocacy actions of the Mayanga people for the defense of their agricultural system and territory in the face of increasing surrounding threats. So this is an example, but you can adjust it to the reality. Dunan, please let me know about the time. So afterwards, we have some observations for you as researchers in this phase. The title, the research must correspond to the objectives of the work. The objectives should be related to the theoretical framework based on the ancestral wisdom, methodology, methods, and techniques of community research. We have to weave our protocol like this, where we are going to harmonize these elements. And in the document of the protocol, we have to take care of the sequence between the paragraphs, wording and spelling should be taken care of. Which is why what Carolina was saying was so important for us, so that we can weave the protocol, we have something that's harmonious, that is understood, and that is able to really generate a good research process. We have to the instrument should be developed based on the objectives, so that the appropriate information is collected during the fieldwork. We already have main questions, we have specific questions. For each specific question, we have other questions, and we start building our objectives. Our guide, a general guide for research on questions. After that, we say, this first part, I've already written something from our own authors, but maybe we have to complement this. So from these questions, I'm going to get this answer. And these are going to be the dialogue in feeling thinking. And that's how we're going to be building it. But the key is main questions, specific questions, and from the specific questions, we have underlying questions. And from there, we build our general guide. And from there, we build the instruments and then what techniques we're going to use. Having the route and the methodology clear. Another element that we have to consider is that the methodology should be well explained, and this will allow you to properly collect information in the field. If we have each step and we explain each step, it's going to allow you to have that information. 2, to ensure that all bibliographical citations are correct and the sources are included in the reference list, meaning we are going to have our bibliography clear, our own documents with authors that talk about intercultural research methodologies and that really provide or help the process. No extractivist points of view. We're going to cite our bibliography correctly. And then when drafting the protocol, it must be written in the future tense. Will be done, will be researched, will benefit. That's very important because the protocol is the planification of what we're going to do in the future. That's another element as a suggestion. A basic guide that we are going to socialize in the tutorings, and Angela already started, and we start today, that part, we're going to do it together. First, the title of the research, the introduction in our protocol, the background, the nature or type of study, a justification, a theoretical framework of what we have already written or what has already been written by other researchers. Nothing complicated, just to be weaving and analyze that framework. For example, we're going to hear that they talk about the access of land for women. But there's an author that says that women shouldn't have lands because that, let's pretend, but women nor originary people should have access to land. That could happen. That could have been said, and we can reflect how the academy, the theorists have written about that, and they have said, and they have weakened the collective rights of women and of peoples. We could cite that. We could cite an author that speaks against it, and we're going to go with this research and deconstruct that fact, or land as a resource that is exploited. We're going to say, no, land is sacred, and we're going to back this up with our facts. For example, we don't have to only have to look at authors that have negative statements. We can also look into authors that have statements that are positive and that we want to elaborate on. for example, land as a resource, and it wasn't written by Indigenous women, but we use it as a basis to really present our focus and our point of view. Then the objectives that we talked about, where we know where we get them from, the methodology and materials, meaning the procedure and the steps, the road, the techniques that we're going to use, the instruments, and what materials, the calendar of activities. And in the methodology, we're going to say who we are going to speak to, who's going to be the heart of our research, and a calendar that defines from here to March. In July, we're not going to be doing any field work. We should have the validated study by then. And then a budget. Because you need to have a budget, it's going to have a cost. Since we're going to have a scholarship, we need to be able to say how we're going to manage those resources based on our research. That's why it's important to establish what community, the distance, how many people, but we're going to be weaving that together, and we have to define clearly this in the methodology. But it's going to depend on the topic, on the questions, the objectives that we want to achieve, and then the list of references, meaning what we're going to base our studies on. If we have other sources, document sources, and the annexes or the appendixes, and we can maybe cite the people. If there's a process of consultation that needs to be signed, for example, a more specific, detailed budget, characterization of people who are going to participate, a note of where we're going to ask the authorization of pictures, etc. A more detailed route of the process, or the instruments, we can already annex those, general research guide. And there's already a document, which I think it's on Moodle, where each of these parts is explained. And in the tutorings, we're going to see them, because on the 15th, we would have, on Friday 22nd, we have the closing seminar of this part of module 3. That with your research protocol, and here we're going to accompany, Angela and I are going to accompany you guys based on the group and the language. You can present it. I'm going to send you a proposal of how the presentation is going to be, and we're going to invite people with research experience that have been a part of the courts that accompany FIMI, that are going to listen and are going to provide advice. But for that, the 22nd, we have to have this in the protocol. The work that has been left is not homework that are going to be left in the air. They're going to nourish this process. How can we in the field make this operational? I recommend this matrix. You can use another one if you have other models, but the specific objective, the questions, because this objective came from a question, and from that question, we can establish other questions, specific questions that allows to be more specific. What are the main farming tools used in the past by the Mayangna ancestors? For that questions, what techniques am I going to use? A focus group, a council, a pishao? What instruments? A focus group guide and a council guide. You can cite any other methodology that you need. For example, a walkthrough, if there's a museum where you have, for example, tools, where we're going to go see those tools. And then we're going to do a comparison or a field visit to see if they have those tools. Now we don't use oxes. They didn't used to burn, now we do burn. What techniques are we going to use? And for that, we need to have instruments and a reference guide that we're going to make operational through technique. And to say, who am I going to come ask? If I want to know about these knowledge that were applied in the past by my young ancestors, who am I going to ask? To the elderly. Maybe I can ask a young agriculturalist and farmer that they maybe know about that. But also, maybe there's bibliography that talks about this, but we have to be very critical of the bibliography that we have. Another one is, what elements of the environment is used for the building of agricultural tools? And currently, what agricultural tools are used as well in the community? For example, they used the cane to open the fields and to plant the seeds. That's what it was used, for example. Now do they use it? No, now they use something else. Now they have a tractor, etc. And what tools are used in the community currently? And what ancestral tools are used? How do we use that comparison? Maybe a technique could be a walkthrough and observation participant to see how they used to do it. And again, we do the focus group, we council guide, a walkthrough, asking the elders, maybe do an interview to agriculture or farmers, an adult farmer, a young farmer, to elders. For example, young farmers can say, oh, I don't want to use oxes, I want to use a tractor because it's quicker. I want to use technology. And what impacts does it generate? And here, there's a guide for observation and walkthrough. And we have a basic question guide. Who we're going to ask in this part? Also the elders, the young agricultures and farmers and farming families as well, which is why part of the process requires family consultation. And for the recovery and processing of the information, the researchers identify which questions need to be included or removed, because sometimes we are crowded with questions and information that we're not going to use, and that's what the information is processed. And we have to be very clear of what we want to achieve. What do we want to build collectively and know collectively? Once the instruments have been developed, guides for interviews, the general research guide, which are all the questions. We're going to say if it's an interview question, if it's a focal group, if it's an observation guide, but we already have our questions. We're just going to say in what technique we're going to use. And if it's possible and ideal, we have to be able to validate those with other people, apply it, do an exercise to see if they're understandable. But if they build with a team in the community, it'll be way easier to validate them because it'll be done collectively. And the information collected in the work carried out with the community must be fully justified by the objectives. Meaning we can't gather information and data that are outside of our objectives and out of our main questions and supporting questions. Everything has to be oriented towards the objective, which is why these questions are important. Otherwise, there's a risk of collecting data of little or no use to carry out an adequate analysis of the research topic. And also, it's going to help us to carry out an adequate analysis of the questions. And we must remember to include in our questions what has caused, what strengths we have, what strategies we have, and what do we propose? What actions do we propose? The idea is to build it together, and we could have a meeting with key people to fine-tune the action and plan. But in the process, with your team, which is your community, have already established some proposals. And before we start the research in the community, to do some community agreements on the design of the research objectives, data collection, analysis of results, and feedback to the community. Because that's going to guarantee that it is a participative process that is sustainable and that they feel part of it. Have the support of the authorities, have the endorsement and support of the authorities, and a climate of trust for entry. We're not just going to parachute in. We're going to have a whole process and contact with people who are wise, key participants that are the heart and the strength of the community. Another element is the steps or stages of the research in, with, and for the community. First, a preliminary visit for collective agreements, energetic activity, ask permission from the territory, ancestors, and community from before we start respecting the spirituality of that community. Ask permission to the earth, to the water, to the ancestors, to everyone, according to their own ways. And then if we can work it, then we have a collective empowerment and training on the research process. Because then they know what they have to do, the times and everything that they have to do. We're going to go to the river, to the woods, all of that. How are we going to do it? And the dialogue of knowledge with individual families, dialogues of knowledge with groups of community, tours of the community, natural commons, sacred site, what they have there that has to do with our subject, and an energetic activity for gratitude of the territories and ancestors and the community. So the same way we open with permission, we close with permission as well. Because then we're going to come back to provide feedback, to validate and say, here we have what we created. But we open with respect and we close with respect. It's a suggestion, and ideally you can do whatever you feel is better. And that generates trust. They're going to say, we had never done a process like this. They always come and they leave. But it ends there, and you didn't do that. You were different. You make me feel good. This is ours, thank you. To leave that energy in that territory is very important. How do we do the process of data collection? We identify the main farming, we have the specific objectives, questions, and responses. For example, identifying the main farming tools used in the Mayanga's ancestors. The questions are, what are the main farming tools used in the past by the Mayanga ancestors? What elements of the environment were used for the construction of farming tools? Currently, what ancestral farming tools are used in the community? For example, not many farming tools were used because Mayangas were dedicated to the collection of fruits, buds, and other products from the forest. Use of the machete and the stick to take out banana stumps. Technically, banana stumps were not sown. They were scattered on the banks of the rivers. Mainly stumps of medium or small trees were used. So these are just examples. When we do the tutoring processes, we're going to be able to kind of go more in depth and according to your specific research. The idea is for you to see how we can weave, and from what we took, from everything we're told, we take out what we need, and to be able to collect the data. We don't have an analysis, we have nothing yet. We just grab the data that we collected and we place it. We can have a matrix like this, the question and the answers, without forgetting that we have an objective. Why do we place the objective? Because it's kind of a horizon. This is where we're going. We need to make sure that we don't forget that we have information that might be important, but doesn't go in that specific objective. So it allows us to kind of organize our ideas and organize our information. We don't analyze from once. We collect the information first. And how do we weave that? Well, developing the fabric of collective cosmos knowledge is data collection and reporting. First of all, what is the clearest and simplest way of transmitting the collective knowledge? Before we write the report, how can this, or preparing presentations, how can this information be used by the community? Let's ask ourselves that. A simple language that is clear, that is their own language and their own words in their own language. What do we want to transmit? We don't want to just relay information. We want to transmit reflection, strength, a document that creates conscience, but also that it presents a problem, not just a cause. If there's a violence because originary people are violent, no. But really, what are the real causes of the problem? What do we want to transmit? We have to keep that in mind. Do we have to transmit a collective or victim mentality? No. We want to transmit life, analysis, strategies, solutions. Who are going to read or listen to us? Who is going to be the people that are the ones who are going to be in charge of receiving that information that we're going to collect? Because it's going to be women and the communities, but also other actors. But the main receptors are the community. And then have other people question it. How can the public ministry or the women's ministry work on fixing their discrimination against women? They also have to take that into consideration, what is said, but also we need to be able to transmit resistance. What is the clearest and simplest way of transmitting the collective knowledge? We're not just going to write in a way that is complicated. It needs to be harmonious and agreeable. And it is important to create a document with the collective cosmos knowledge results of the research process in order to communicate the learnings and to make the information available to inspire new actions for cultural revitalization. The important thing is to recognize the fundamental importance of good communication. When you draft a report and leading the community in feedback sessions, you have to be able to transmit the information with empowerment and be able to have the community feel revitalized with the information and have them feel that their self-determination is revitalized as well. And we are not talking about victims. We are denouncing a problem, but we're not victimizing community. And again, these feedback sessions need to provide good communication, meaning the document is not just for this process and for FIMI. The document is for the communities. It must come back to them. So we have to define how we're going to go back to them. We have a sister that did an audio-visual. We have a lot of sisters who have done audio-visuals or radio programs. They have created a didactic process, and that's how they returned their information to the community or the research to the community. And how do you weave? And you have to say we have to think about who's going to read this, who will be our audience, and some recommendations for written communication, right? In a simple, direct, and synthetic way with substantiating what has been said, like Carolina was saying, but based on what has been said, in what has been felt and expressed, and what we have witnessed. We can't copy or make things up. We need to really focus on the root of that research, which is the knowledge that we know exists in these communities and that we went and researched. And this is a research process that does provide strength to what we were told. And we're going to build from there, from the community and from the perspective of the community. And try not to make the test too long as well. Write short paragraphs and short sentences so that reading doesn't become boring. Review the text as many times as necessary to achieve the ideal language, style, and length. You have to make sure that when you're drafting the final report, it should be written in the past tense. Was done, was analyzed, etc., except for the recommendations that will be drafted for the future. It's very important to consider if we can speak the language of the community, stating or writing some information in the language of the community. Avoid just copy pasting testimonies and citing other authors. We have to do an analysis. And again, make sure that you write all of this in past tense. One thing is what we planned for, another thing is what we did. We finished, we did, we presented, we drafted. Recommendations are always in the future. And the incidents plan also has to be done according to the structure. And here are some recommendations for written communication. When drafting the final report, it's crucial to awaken and flourish the cosmovision, the feeling thinking, the cosmo feeling, and the collective cosmo knowledge of the researchers from the indigenous languages as well. Those collective knowledge. I think I'm out of time. I'm just going to finish this quickly. We have to describe the fact, analyze the fact, causes, relationship with other facts and consequences, conceptualize the fact, and describe the fact and how it can be supported by testimonials. Thank you so much. And I think time is up. I would like to give you some information. Please, on Friday, is going to be the closing event, but considering that we're still in the process, instead of starting with the seminar, we're going to start with Angela. Angela is going to start with the topic that corresponds. And from 9 to 10, I'm going to clear up some points so that on the 22nd, in our seminar, we're going to have the presentation of our research protocol. And we're going to be working on that in the tutoring. Angela with Asia and Africa, and I will be working with Abdayala. So it's very important that we are attentive to our work and to our different sessions in the Moodle guides. If there's anything that comes up, we'll write to you in the chat. Thank you to you. And I'm sorry that today I did speak too much but the time is short, and this information is very important to you and for the process that's oncoming and that you're already doing. Thank you and have a wonderful day or night. Good night. Good night, good afternoon, and good day.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Bye.